Welcome to Faith, Politics, and Life. Where are we today with the election? Well, as it stands right now, there are numerous lawsuits. There's going to be a recount in Georgia. There's a challenge in Michigan beyond just a vote, a recount. There is some audit, which would take a little bit longer because then you're actually looking through exactly for fraud in each vote. Um, and there's a bunch of lawsuits pertaining to Pennsylvania. And it's all going to unravel instead of looking at all the allegations and examining what each one has to say. What you have to look for is to see which ones the as far as the state courts and eventually the Supreme Court would merit as something as far as looking over or reviewing it. So that's going to be playing out in the next, I say probably next week. Now, as I mentioned in one of my videos, I talk about a red wave, and the more numbers are coming in, now I could actually say there really was a red wave. As of now, we have started off in the Congress as the Democrats had a 232 to 197 edge, and depending who you could look at various numbers, New York Times and others, that it's either 204 or 205. I think it's more like 205, and 218 or 219, but I think it's more like 205 to 219 right now. I mean 205 to 218. And in a number of the remaining races, Republicans are leading. Think about that. Before this election started, the Democrats had a control of 232 to 197. They were supposed to get what's called a supermajority. They were supposed to get into the maybe 247, 248. If it was really incredible supermajority, maybe even 250 or something to that. And now it looks like they're going to be losing a bunch of seats. So that's good news there for the Republicans. And as of now, on the Senate side, it's up to 50 seats. And there are two runoffs in Georgia, and they're both favorites to win in Georgia. So, and not only that, you have Manchin in West Virginia. He has said that even if the Republicans were to lose the Senate, he's not going to vote, number one, to change the Supreme Court by adding more justices. He's not going to change the filibuster, and he's not going for this defund. He's not going for any of these social things. There is a chance now. There's talk behind the scenes that there is a 50-50 chance that Joe Manchin from West Virginia, he's a senator from West Virginia, he might flip and become a Republican somewhere down the line. So that is and he's, by the way, if you don't know anything about politics, he's a Democrat. He's on the Democratic side. And he might flip over to being a Republican. So things really look good for the Republicans. So you're probably wondering, and you're saying to yourself, I don't understand something here. There was a red wave against socialism, against defunding the police, against all these things that people they wanted to keep the institutions intact. They didn't want radical change. Why is it, if we had these great numbers, why did the president if things turn out the way they are. And by the way, let me say one more thing about this. Um, there was a review, another review done by someone who read most of the briefs, which I have to give him credit. If you read all these legal briefs, you could be up all night reading this stuff. Someone at the Blaze, it was a conservative organization. They have Blaze TV. He read all these briefs, and he believes, in his humble opinion, that there most of the challenges add up to about 1,000 votes, in if you put the vast majority in them. Now there are a couple ones that could be bigger. Maybe some other things will be revealed. Who knows? But if everything pretty much stays the same, and let's say Trump gains maybe 5,000 here or 8,000 there, or who knows, maybe Georgia flips back, but Pennsylvania stays the same. But more or less, you have the same race with maybe 30,000, 40 or 50,000 more votes added to Trump, President Trump. What happened then? Why is it that the general population voted for the Congress, the Senate and the Congress, to turn more Republican? And when I say turn more Republican, I'm not talking just about Texas. Louisiana and the places you would normally would think that. I'm talking about California. I'm talking about New York. As a matter of fact, what is the number? I think I have it. Oh yeah, 76 in New York City. Trump had 76,000 more votes than he did against Biden and then 4 years ago. So that was a plus for him there in New York City. But what happened that the Congress and Senate went so well? Basically, there were a number of individuals who had only one vote, and that was for Biden and nothing else. They didn't vote for Congress, Senate, or anything else. And there were a number of individuals who voted for Biden and then voted for the Republicans. So you had a combination of those two. Now, I can get into all the numbers and I can throw out a million numbers in the next 30 minutes and go for all that. I'm not going to do that. Basically, what happened is this. When Trump got into office, he declared war on the media. And the media declared war on him. And it was a fight back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between them. And I know Trump. I don't know him personally. He is from Queens. I am from Queens. He grew up in an area called Jamaica Estates, which is right next to Jamaica. Now, for you that don't know anything about New York City, Jamaica Estates is an upper middle class neighborhood. It's not like a super rich neighborhood. It's an upper middle class neighborhood. And on the border of it is an area called Jamaica. When I was growing up in Jamaica, in Queens, I didn't grow up in Jamaica. I grew up in Corona, next to Lefrak City, if any New York City people out there. Trump was sent to boarding schools and all the rest, but there is no way to avoid the fact that if you live in Jamaica Estates, that you are going to eventually wander into Jamaica. Now you say, why? That's so dangerous, and you take your risk, you go there, you make friends, and the attitude of Jamaica was an attitude of a bulldog, a fighter. And unless you grew up in New York City and know anything about these areas and how it could have an effect on an individual, you wouldn't notice any of this. I do. And more so because of my training as a counselor, and I have to make judgments and all my, I did a lot of counseling through the years. I I notice other keen things that other people may not notice. I see a lot of the, not all of it, but some of the aspects of Jamaica influences in the president. And what I mean by that is this: one of the birthplaces of there's an argument where rap started. It was started in the Bronx. It started in Queens. It was at Jamaica. Um, you know, most people think it's in the Bronx. Jamaica was where the epicenter of rap. If there was after the Bronx, it was probably Jamaica, and that's where you had groups like Run DMC, which made famous that stance that all rappers for a number of years do. And that was with the arms crossed and a defiant look. That was Jamaica embodied. That was the attitude of Jamaica. And some of that, a little bit of that, is rubbed off on the president. He's a fighter. And when he got into office and he noticed that there was all these attacks and some bias, he, he said, you know what? I'm not going to take this. And another factor, and remember, he's not a politician either. A politician would have indirectly answered some of the questions and get around it and attack the media in an indirect way. He didn't do that. He went right after them. And number three, he's a businessman. He's a go get 'em type. Now, I was in the real estate world, and I almost by a hair got to meet Trump. I knew somebody that knew him when he was in real estate. And I knew about him. I knew a lot of things about him, and I knew that he was just the type of guy that, okay, what needs to get done, okay, let's get it done, and let's move already. Let's do this. Let's do that. So when he got into office, he was jumping the gun all the time. He was like, okay, let's get this done. No, sir, you got to go through this and you got to do that. All right, you saying this is a good? No, don't say that publicly. Well, why not? Let me just say blah blah blah. So when he declared war on the media, anything he said was used against him. So that when he jumped the gun as go getter and just do it, not a politician, they said, "Oh, there he goes, the stupid guy. He's making another suggestion." No, it wasn't the stupid guy. In his logically, he was thinking, what's the problem? Let's just get it done. Now, that worked a lot of the time just to get things done. And he got a lot of things done. A lot of the promises that he made, they were fulfilled. I mean, it's amazing. You never seen a man say, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to bring the embassy back to Jerusalem. I'm going to cut taxes. I'm going to help the black community. With colleges. I'm going to do reforms and everything. Just about everything he said, he did, except that he wanted to do it as a New Yorker, a business guy. He wanted to do it yesterday. So what happened was, in all that hastiness, he got attacked for it, and attacked for it, and attacked for it, and attacked for it. And at one point, he had enough. He said, you know what? I'm not a politician here. You're coming after me? You think you're coming after me? And he went right after them. And that defiance came out, that all those things came out. Now, when all that stuff came out, the media took it and magnified it 100 times even more than it should have been magnified, and said, oh, he's a horrible blah, 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 blah. And he attacked them back, and then the temperature just kept rising and rising. And that caused this horrendous, terrible image to come out to independents, uh, to soccer moms, suburban voters, and it just was reinforced by the media. Another problem that he had, in particular in its first year, was that when you have board meetings in the business world, you have such a volume of subjects you have to deal with, and you just want to say, okay, this is important, let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done, let's get it done. Okay, this looks bad, but let's get it done. In its first year, his when he would speak in almost like sound bites. Okay, blah 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 boom, blah 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 boom. He wouldn't explain himself, and when he didn't explain himself, it was almost like now the media was at war with him already. He's letting the media explain him, and that happened numerous times all through his first year. I think till maybe 2018. Then he started giving these big the press conferences where he would talk 45 minutes. He said, "Okay, I can't let the media put words in my mouth." And I think all that came to a head in Charlottesville when you had when he said that he made that statement. Oh, he made an assessment, a quick assessment. Okay, so you have they put when president makes an assessment, you have 12 people, 10 whatever coming before him. They're saying, okay, this is what are the views? What's going on? What is these protests? What are these white supremacists? What's going on with all this with the statues and taking the statues down and all that? So, well, this is it. Basically, you have um, people that are dealing with history. They feel, well, that's just history, that it should not be taken down. And you have, 95% of them are white, 5% are black, because this way we should not forget our history. Now on the other side, you got people that say this is racism, and now you got these protesters on the ground that they're mostly white supremacists, and these are the two sides of the issue. He got up there like a executive board member, the president, and of a board, without giving much explanation, said there are good people on both sides of this issue. I mean, on here, and and he made it very short, brief, to the point. Media just destroyed him. Oh, he's a racist. Mind you, Jamaica, where he hung out with, and he took some of those bulldog traits, was 90% black. Most of the people, a lot of the people that were wealthy he hung out with, if you go back, if you want to Google it, you'll see they're rappers, black entrepreneurs. He hung out with he didn't hang out with the rich. People say, oh, he's just some rich guy from here. He was new money. And new money in New York City, they thought he was classless. He didn't have it. So he felt more comfortable with the normal, average Joe construction guy. He would hang out with them. And then when he made this beautiful, penthouses, who would he invite? Average Joes that made a lot of money. Not some sophisticated, elite that comes from wealth and a lineage and all that. No, it was the average Joe that made money. And some of them, not all of them, a portion of them were average rappers that made money. And remember, he hung out where the capital of rap, one of the actually the mecca of rap, was Jamaica. So this whole thing about him being a racist, it's absolutely ridiculous. But he learned his lesson. He said, what is this? I'm a what? What? No, Mr. President, you can't just give these short. You got to explain. You can't leave. And the media kept running with it, running with it, and finally, after that, if you notice, his press conferences got longer and longer and longer and longer, and gave you know. But as his press conferences got longer, knowing that he's not a politician, the media tried to push him to say something so that they could have something to give on the news. So when all of this played out through now these number of years, the perception that many voters, some Republican, a lot of Democrats, some independent voters, and all these, they said, you know what? We love all the things that he did, but I, it's too much. He's too much. I can't vote for him. I will vote for Congress. I'll vote for the Senate, but I'll just vote for this. Seem to be quiet, harmless uh, Biden here. This and that's all I'm going to say. I'm not. Everybody wants me to make fun. I'm not going to make any fun about some of the problems he's having, but he just seems like I just want quiet. I'm sick of the fighting. I'm sick. So the media magnified everything by a million times over. Now, it was not only the actual media. Then you had Hollywood, Robert De Niro getting up in front of everybody and saying something I can't even repeat here. Trump is, and everyone in the audience in Hollywood looking at him in shock, and then slowly, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. It was Hollywood was against him, social media. When you're getting it from every single end, you're a human being. And when you see Trump fighting and being that bulldog that he is, after a while, some of these folks said, that's it. I want him out. He's a wonderful guy. He did a lot of good. Maybe the Republicans can keep doing that for me and whatever. I'll vote for Republican. Now you're probably wondering if that's the case, why is there 5 million more votes for for Biden than for Trump? That's part of the reason. That's number one. That a lot of people who voted for Biden just went and switched over, or just voted for Biden, didn't vote for anybody else. And then the other main factor is California. Even there are some Republicans in Republican areas, but still Republicans who are in Congress that have won seats. And there in California, remember that everybody kept saying there's 5 more million votes for Biden. Well, that's pretty much where California has 5 more million votes for Biden than Trump, just in that state. So that's the big difference. But and other states too, in those margins. So that is something that going to play into that played into everything. Now, where does it go from here? From here, historically, whoever president is in power by the midterm. Now, if you don't know anything about politics, midterm is after a president, the inaugural of the president. 2 years after that, you have what's called the midterms. And even if you have a good president that's doing pretty good, that president historically, I think it's only been one time in the last, I don't know how many years, 50, 60, I don't know exactly the years, but they will always lose House and Senate seats. So I would not be shocked if the Republicans take the House and reinforce themselves in the Senate. So that is the good side of it. Now, knowing Trump, and I said this before, think about it. Trump's a bulldog. He's if he loses, he's gonna feel like you know, the media did him and this did him and all. He's gonna come back. I'm more than positive. I just can't think. I mean, Pence might go, and there is other people, Rubio and all that. I just cannot see any other Republican taking his place, and I can't see that huge base of support that he has uh, if he decides to come back, not to have him win the Republican nomination. I just and I could be totally wrong. Maybe Pence or somebody else takes it, but I think he will come back. And if he does come back, I'm I think he would win. That's my humble opinion. He would win, and I think he will have the Senate and the Congress, and he would not be impeded in any way to do what he thinks is right for the country. So now, one last thing I want to say before I want to mention before I end this video, and I want to talk about the Electoral College. There's been a lot of talk and attack on that. Electoral College, give you a very brief history of Electoral College. It, it was during the convention, late in the convention, that a number of the smaller states, there's 13 colonies, and you have the, you have like, for example, Delaware, representative for Delaware, I don't remember his name off the top of my head. He said that we would face tyranny as a small state because the bigger states would dominate. Now, why was he worried? Because he didn't want New York to dominate and a couple other big states to dominate all of Washington. At that time, actually, the capital was in New York, but let's just say for today, Washington D.C. politics. And so he said there has to be a form, something that protects us. So they came up with a way to make each state relevant to have a say in the vote. So in other words, if you live in if it wasn't any electoral college, let's say today, California, which has, like I just mentioned, 5 million more votes from one side, and they're very big, and New York would be and Texas would be the three juggernauts that would dominate the election. And in particular, maybe another state here and there, but those are the three big juggernauts. So what would happen? The candidates for president will be going back and forth between those three states and pouring in money, and they would not. The middle of the country would be almost forgotten, and that's the same thing that the representative of Delaware was saying. We're going to be forgotten. Now, this has played out, believe it or not. To give you an example, in California, they have an enormous water problem. And they have to bring in water from other states. And the focus has been in the cities, to bring the water into the cities, and almost neglect some of the northern communities and some of the communities, farmers, and they've been complaining that they're the last ones to be thought about. They're an afterthought. And why? Because a lot of the votes come where? From the cities. Some constitutionalists and historians have suggested, and that maybe they should be electoral college. Some states should have like an electoral college system within the state, so that the cities would not dominate. In some of these big states, the cities would not dominate all the politics. So what would happen if we didn't have an electoral college? The cities would dominate the big cities would dominate all the politics, and all the middle of the country would be forgotten. They wouldn't. The politics, they would be almost like an afterthought. They'll be like, well, I might. We'll do something for them a little late. We'll figure out something for them, and this way, every state is deemed important, and that's why the electoral college is important. Now, if you want dates on the date that all the elections, all the votes have to be, everything has to be done as far as audits and recounts and everything. All those matters have to be done by December 8th. By let me think. I knew I was going to forget. Oh yeah, by December. Then after that, they they everyone gets together, all the electorates get together, and they officially, by that time, they know exactly what who won what, and then they would send it to the vice president or the president of the Senate. That's the official name. On Article 2 of the Constitution, remember, you have the executive, and then you got the vice president. There's two jobs the vice president has. One is, as president of the Senate, he breaks the tie in the Senate. If you have 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats, and the president is Republican, he would break the tie with his vote. The other job is to collect the electoral uh, votes and put them together. So that would happen on, let me see, December 23rd. And then on January 6th, it gets sent to the Congress, and it's after that it's all ceremonial. Everybody knows who won, and they'll officially vote. And then the 20th, of course, the inaugural, and that's the end of it. So that's pretty much the steps along with the electoral college. So I hope that we have some clarity and some things on a couple of matters. But before we go, I want to mention that it is important as Christians that we pray, and this is for the faith community. We really have to pray, and we got to pray for whoever's going to be president. We got to pray for our country, and we also got to pray for our freedoms. I mentioned the attacks on all these things that happened with the president, and our freedoms as believers and as those of faith are, they want us, they're trying to cage us in more and more and more and more and more, and it's getting to be more of an accepted thing. There is a there was an editorial from the New York Times, and one of the things that, I think his name is Bruni. That's what it's. Yeah. You can look him up. New York Times, last name is Bruni. He said, he wrote an article which no one really protested and nobody said anything against, and editorial for a major newspaper, when he said that Christians should keep their opinions in their home. He said, in their hearts, in their homes, and in their pews. So they keep their religious opinions in their hearts, in their homes, and in their pews. And remember what I told you before. It's starting to happen. There's a lot of semantics and words, and today where everything is being redefined. What they're trying to tell Christians is, it's okay to be a Christian. I don't have anything against you. It's good. It's nice that you're a Christian. Very nice thing. But it's nice to keep it confined. Don't let it get out too much. Don't let it be a part of the way you think or live or anything like that, because if you do get a little bit out of bounds, you will be exposed. And you're probably asking, exposed for what? What? Being a bigot in some way or fashion. being some kind of phobe, because there's numerous of those. And so what's happened is, as Christians, you're beginning to see more and more Christians just walk around like mice, like quiet mouse, like quiet mice around the offices, and I hope nobody knows I'm a Christian. Oh, don't you go to church? Yeah, I do. I do. I do. And I saw a little bit of this when I. It wasn't as bad when I was in working in Manhattan in the offices in the in the business world. Um, One of the things that I try to do, and this I hope this is a help for individuals that are in this cancel culture today. I remember, and this is a testimony I'll give you. When I went to work for um, Cohen Smith Chang, I I just prayed and I said, Lord, I want to be an influence here. I want to do something here. And anybody that's worked in anywhere in the corporate world, you know that you're going to be put in a cubicle or an office, and you're going to have all these type of personalities. Some are loud, some are crazy, some are vulgar. You have the whole spectrum there. So when I was praying, I felt like the Lord saying to me, for now, just keep things quiet. So I try to be the best testimony. I try to help people, talk to people, and try to be outgoing. People started seeing that I was a little different than everybody else. And I didn't really have peace about really going all out. I mean, not all out, but at least mentioning some of the things of faith and all that. And I was wondering, maybe, am I being a coward here? I'm not sure what's going on. Well, finally, what happened was somebody told me when they found out as I started opening up more and more and more, and I started developing relationship and friendships, and people started opening up to me, and they finally finding out where I come from. And I purposely sometimes brought a Bible with me and left it on my desk, and just to be a testimony. And come to find out that the CEO of my company, about a year, and this is about, it took me about 2 years to really get out and speak out about my faith. A year before I arrived there, there was another person who claimed to be a Christian and a person that talked about the Bible, and he got into a big argument with the CEO and cursed him out and told him if he saw him on the street, he would kill him, and he quit. I didn't know this. By God's grace and mercy, I just was led of God for a while until I could prove that I was real to everybody there. And basically, what I would say to anyone in this atmosphere, and by the way, I was in another office where the atmosphere was terrible. Uh, and I'm not going to get into that whole story there, but let me just say this. Being in a prayerful attitude, that's what you have to do. And once you start praying for people around you and taking the chance to develop friendships, to ask them about their families, ask them how they're doing, seeing where they are, where you'd be surprised sometimes when in this world where everything is going a million miles a minute, and people are going through all kinds of problems, depression, sadness, this and that and the other. You know, when I would go out for lunch or talk to some of them, they started opening up to me. And more and more and more, and when I developed those friendships, and I, like I said, I read my Bible, and they knew I would read my Bible. And at first, when they started noticing that I was this Bible guy, everyone just kind of distance, felt like a little distance at first. And they were testing me and looking at, everyone was just looking at me. And eventually people started opening up to me and saying, could you, could you, could you pray about this once in a while in quiet, in private? Oh, can you pray about this? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, can you pray about that? What's funny is, and this is a funny story, but when Cohen Smith Chang moved to their new office, right, in another part of Manhattan, I was the CEO, which I got to be very close with. He said, I assigned you at this seat there with your cubicle, and everything is kind of assigned. I assign people. I looked around me. I had all the people in the office that were all the people that were personality problems and other people couldn't stand. They were all around me, surrounded me. He felt that I could help them and be useful to them. At first, I was like, hold up, Tom is here, and Eddie, what is this? And what? I got all. I was like, at first, I didn't take it too good, but then I said, okay, Lord, this is the ministry you've given me. So, so basically, friendships. Don't look at anyone like, oh, just this guy. This guy's, you know, he's some kind of crazy guy, or she's some crazy views and all that. Look at people as individuals, and that will change everything. And once you start praying for people individually by name, God will start touching your heart and seeing their need. And when that happens, then it will manifest yourself in your attitude. And there's something special that happens that God blesses you with, like this sense of care that only comes through prayer, that people will approach you eventually. Not at first, now going to come knocking, breaking down your door, but then you have that opportunity to create bridges and talk to people and to be a witness to people. So that's what I would say. And I hope that that is helpful. And if you do have difficult people around you, this is something I taught when I was, and I've always said in New York City when I was assistant pastor there, Brillo people are the people God sends to you that'll make you grow. Brillo, to the pot cleaner, and scrape things. You're gonna have people just come and scrape you and be like, ah. You run away from that. God sends those people your way. You're running away from spiritual growth. That's where your growth is. That's where your capacity to learn to love people as you should will grow. So I'll leave it there. And I will mention Brillo people. That's going to be one of my key points in everything I mention for on in all the videos. So we're going to end with a word of prayer. And I hope by next week, if the Lord wills, I will have the first faith video. So far, it's all been political. There's faith, politics, and life. So the life is going to entail counseling and biblical counseling and some aspects of now my world is the counseling world, and I do study studies that come out of Princeton and all that, and I'll be mentioning some of these things that are really disturbing, but I'm not going to get into that. It'd be too long to get into that. But trends and things that are more intricate, but I always promise not to use big words or go over anybody's head with these things. So that's going to be one aspect. But the faith thing is going to come out, the faith section, And here's the key on the faith section. It's very important. I'm going to be mentioning apologetics, someone in a personality in church history, and then someone or community that's being persecuted around the world. Those are the three things that I'm going to be mentioning. And the first apologetics is going to be Apologetics 101. And I'll mention some of the things that really helped me in my thinking and in my witnessing. And I'll mention all that in that video. But it's important not to be intimidated by a scientist or politician or some kind of faith leader of I had to deal with so many individuals of all types, and probably most of you are not going to deal with these, but if you do, then I'll give you some pointers, and you're going to say, wow, this is so simple. It is very simple because it's the foundation, it's the basic of apologetics, and we're going to deal with very very basic groundwork on the first one, and then after that I'll deal with Revelation, then the second video, and I'll give you some key points. And what I mean by revelation, I mean the Word of God, obviously. That is our foundation, and that is our authority. That's the final authority. So I'm going to mention those in the first two videos, and that's very, very important. I hope to get to it next week, and we'll see how all that turns out. Well, let's pray, and let's end in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you and praise you for Yeshua HaMashiach. We thank you, Lord, for being such a wonderful God to us. I just pray as believers, as those of faith, that we would be those that are not only agents of peace and grace, but messengers of your truth as we go out about this world, Lord. And I pray that we will not be taken up by all the division and hate and all the political aspects of this tribalism that's infected everything. I pray that no matter where we're at, and wherever we live or wherever we work, that we will show forth your love through us and show forth Christ to this world. And as it's been said a million times, that we're the only Bible anyone's ever going to read. And I pray that they will see through the pages of our lives that we have love, grace, and mercy to show them. Thank you for all your blessings. Thank you for being such a great God. We ask all this now in Yeshua's name. Amen. God bless. Bye-bye. Glory.